It's so interesting. I've never actually had anyone say that. I felt cinematic, that did.
I've never had that description before. Meet Mark Evans, a visionary whose creations emerged from leather etched with nothing but a scalpel, patience, and an intense obsession for perfection. Mark doesn't just craft art, he carves emotion, resilience, and raw humanity into every meticulous detail.
This is one of the greatest artists in the world.
You kind of call yourself an obsessive perfectionist, don't you, with OCD traits. What is it that you're actually obsessed with?
For me, this obsession's always been there since a little boy. I always felt it was just wild. I was just too much. My emotions were too big and out into the wild or to canvas or paper to find an outlet to channel this big emotions.
Wow.
So someone gave me advice, don't find what the world needs and go do it. Find what makes you come alive.
Exactly.
And go do that. That's when I realized I have to do this. I found myself where time stood still.
How?
There are moments where you forget there even is time. There's been moments where it goes from art as obsession into...
Why is risk so sexy to you?
Wow, good question. We are working towards this pinnacle of trying to take the craft into a realm that no one can believe is possible. Fear has been something I've battled with.
What do you do?
The most vital antidote to fear is...
Today on Think Deeper, I sit down with an artist whose canvas isn't conventional and whose tools redefine precision. Mark's masterpieces tell stories deeper than the surface they're carved upon. Join me as we explore the mind behind the scalpel, diving into his disciplined rituals, his moments of solitude, and the powerful legacy he's building one intricate incision at a time.
Wow, the power of sound.
Isn't it just magical?
It's phenomenal. It took me to a composer scoring a film. When it takes you into that place of sound, takes you on a completely different journey.
Wow.
So I spend my life in images, but then images and sound come together and it's a different story's told, isn't it? Yeah, so I felt cinematic, that did.
Wow. Well, I've never had that description before, but I'll take it. Yeah. So, if you may pick the first word from the bowl, and then we will start our conversation.
Obsession.
I just love how the universe works every time. Obsession. So, you kind of call yourself an obsessive perfectionist, don't you, with OCD traits. What is it that you're actually obsessed with? Is it the art? Is it life? What is it that makes you that obsessive?
Wow, good question. Well, I think this goes right back to early boyhood. So as a dad myself, my mum many years ago said to me, she said, when you were little, when you were 4 or 5, I was worried that social services were going to take you away from me. I looked and I said, why? And she said, because your forehead was always covered in bruises. And she thought that the doctor thought I was being beaten. I wasn't. And she said, you'd stand and bang your head against a wall. I said, why did I do that? She said, well, you couldn't do what your mind was wanting to do. Whether it was making Lego or drawing, your vision of what you wanted to do as a boy was too far ahead of what your hands could make. And so there's always been this place of, there's frustration and this boiling place of wanting to make something and having a vision to create, and yet trying to let my craft and skill work and grow in alignment with what I saw. So for me, this obsession's always been there since a little boy.
That's a really kind of incredible scale of self-awareness, isn't it, as a child? If you're already feeling something, even though you don't quite know what it is you're feeling, but you're in tune with feeling it.
Yeah, I always felt it was just wild. I always felt I was just too much.
Yeah.
If you were to take a stone and throw it into a calm pond, you'd have a plop and a ripple. But with me, it was like throwing the stone and there was this explosion and the whole lake would come at you. I always felt things were out of proportion. My emotions were too big. I was too much. And so I'd have to go off and out into the wild or to canvas or paper and to find an outlet to channel these big emotions. And so for me, art became a place where I could take that.
When was the moment that you realized This is why I felt what I felt when I was a child. When was that moment that you reasoned with yourself, almost allowed all of that pain
Yeah.
because you'd found partially a way of understanding maybe an element of why you were feeling that when you were a child?
It was a series of moments, and probably like many people out there, especially if your family dynamic or your parents or your teachers, tutors have an expectation that you have to go down a certain road, that you're forced into a mold that you might not feel fits, or you might not be able to express that at the time. And for me, there were these moments where I found myself where time stood still. There were moments, I'm sure you know, it's like when you're clock watching and you think, oh, please, I need this to finish, because you so hate what you're doing. But the opposite of that is also true, where there are moments where you forget there even is time, and you're lost in this moment where it feels as if eternity's just somehow come down, and you think, oh, I'll stop for lunch now, and look at your clock and think, wait, all afternoon and evening's gone. How did that happen? And so there were these moments throughout my life where I realized I'm finding this flow. I feel like I'm fully alive, and yet it's outside of what I'm told I should do. Because I did really well in school, and I was told you need to be an engineer, an architect, but I had this passion for creativity. Well, that'll never make any money. You're never going to be able to succeed in that. And so from being pretty young, I remember my first girlfriend and meeting her parents. Her parents are quite a big deal and fairly important people in the community. And when we met, I was 18, and her parents said, oh, what do you do? I said, oh, I'm an art student. And you could see that shock of terror across their face, like, get rid of him. Because art doesn't work, it's this kind of mindless thing, so people think, or it's a hobby, but yet there was this place in me where the academic roots and the things that I was steered to do.
It's the conditioning, isn't it? There's an expectation of you to follow a certain route.
But it didn't leave me with the sense that I'm in this place of, oh, I'm alive here. I feel alive here. So the moments, to answer your question, what was the moment? I think it was a series of moments where I realized, what does the world need? People would say, what does the world need? So go do that. There's so many business podcasts. What does the world need? Find the need, go do it. But someone gave me advice, don't find what the world needs and go do it. Find what makes you come alive.
Exactly.
And go do that. Because what the world really needs is people who've come alive. And that's when I realized I have to do this. And against all odds, I carved this obsessive path to, yeah.
And when you're kind of when you're in the mix of whatever you're doing, this obsessive nature that you have, does it then fuel you to complete, let's say, a commission that you've got? Does it fuel you to make that piece to its absolute perfection? Where does that obsession then sit?
In everything you said and more. It's difficult because there's the obsession to keep perfecting what I'm doing. So it's nearly a quarter of a century now of carving into the surface of leather with blades. And I've got an incredible studio team, really talented. And we are working towards this pinnacle of trying to take the craft into a realm that no one can believe is possible. So at the moment we're working on these pieces, and if you were to stand 10 feet back, it would literally look like a photo. But every bit of it's been carved and pigmented. It's incredible.
I've seen it.
So there's that.
I can't believe it. Yeah, I really can't believe it.
But then there's the part of me that wants to work with incredible people. And there's the excitement and the energy of working with people who they're on their own path of something. And so when those sparks collide, I really love that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think probably the focus to finish a piece, I'm everywhere. That's why I need a team, because I'll have the idea and I can move on to the next piece before I finish the last one. And so the team are like, okay, we have to.
Oh wow,
we've got to keep
That's
here.
interesting.
I'm have many pieces on the go at once.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's lots happening. Thankfully, my team are great at staying
on something.
Okay, we're going to finish this. This is the deadline for this, and I'm already 3 pieces ahead.
That's your nature, though, isn't it? If you don't like being compartmentalized or conforming to something, You've got to kind of keep the wild side of you going.
Absolutely, yeah.
And be free.
This is the pioneering that I love. Like carving a path through the jungle. I have no idea where we're going, but this is where we're going. If you're going to do that and you're going to kind of go through with a machete and a chainsaw and carve this path, you need people behind you that are going to clear up the mess and log the trees that you know what I mean? And make sense of the mayhem. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, I'm not going to look. Solitude. Yeah, okay.
Well, we know from kind of your childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known you a long time, right?
Long time.
What, 20 years?
Yeah.
So you've always been this person that's very deep, very intense. You're comfortable in your own space. I'm very similar. So I always I know the universe places you in those kind of matrix to meet similar kinds of people. And you've also alluded to the fact that in your childhood, you spent a lot of time on your own. Your kind of fellow kids would be playing Atari at home, but you'd be out running in the mountains in Wales. Is this element of solitude for you, is it a necessity? Is it a hindrance? Is it challenging sometimes?
Absolutely essential. If I don't get it, I turn quickly to my wife names me different names. Mark, Dark, Shark. There's all these different versions of me. So if you want to get dark, don't let me have solitude. I need it. It's so important. Solitude for me is a very thin place where you're, okay, I can download. I can have those moments of, and so for me, solitude has to be arranged for. And there are places I go where I know no one can get me. There's no phone signal here. So yeah, that's important.
And what do those places look like? What do you do? Is it meditative?
So when you say meditation, to me that sounds still, calm. I'm kind of wild.
I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think meditation for a lot of people, because it stems from, people's understanding of prayer or chanting, or as you say, sitting still. But I think it's different for different people. And meditation can be somebody on a treadmill, just zoning out and going into a space where they feel it's just them and nothing else.
Yeah.
For me, meditation is around mantra chanting and prayer, but also in that space of nothingness, when it's just quiet.
Yeah, the quiet's important. But for me, I need movement. So I've got access to this ancient woodland I go to. I need to walk. If I'm away, there's a little rock outcrop off a Greek island that I swim to where no one can get me. So I need movement, and I need ideally beauty. If you're out in the wild, I'm from Wales, so it's so beautiful, North Wales. In the everyday, living outside London, I just need moments every morning. So I try to get up before the whole family, and I need those moments to keep me Mark. Otherwise I'll drift into this. Yeah, I go places.
Dark.
Yeah, I go dark. Yeah.
What happens?
Everything is a problem.
Is that how you're seeing it? Is your perception of everything being a problem?
Yeah, if I go dark, it's like I'm looking at the issues rather than where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's object fixation, I think it's called. So I've got a friend, a dear friend, maybe 20 years ago, he went paragliding, and there was maybe 8 to 10 miles of lovely soft moorland. And every time he climbed this tor to paraglide and jump, he kept landing in this one gorse bush. There was one gorse bush. And he said, I can't believe it. How come there's miles of empty, soft moorland? Why am I landing in this one gorse bush? And the instructor came back after the third time, and he's covered in thorns and splinters. And the instructor said, because you're looking at it. You're so afraid of landing in it. You go where you fixate.
Yeah.
So you should just be looking where you want to go. And so to answer your question, when I go into those realms of dark, it's like I'm looking at the problem and you fixate on that. So it's
how do you get out of it then? Because that's not a nice place, is it?
It's
and you
not.
know yourself it's not a nice place, and it's affecting everybody around you. Your wife's already given it a name.
Yeah.
So how does dark Mark get out of that space and go back to being Mark?
It's thankfulness, realizing, okay, be intentional about what I've actually got that I'm grateful for. And sometimes you've got to list it in those moments. Okay, this and this and this. And then it starts to lift, kind of lifts the heart and and your entire demeanor and worldview outlook changes in
I
a
love
moment.
that.
So yeah,
Just gratitude, just
yeah,
simple action of
Yeah.
gratitude.
although it's simple, it's not always easy in those moments. But yeah, that's for me shifted a lot.
Is there anything else that kind of moves the barometer for you? Is there music? Does music play a part in that?
Every morning I love to sit and read the Psalms. They're ancient, and there's something about being in an ancient text that takes me out of the now and the chaos and the world and politics, and I'm back in this thousands of year old words. And so for me, I'll often play, when I'm sitting listening, film scores. Like I said, it takes me somewhere. So for me, that's really helpful. Like these deep places of, I think the world, the present age is so quick. It has to be now. I remember my kids wanted to put something in the microwave and they said 30 seconds and they were waiting. And I said, 30 seconds, you crazy. People have to go and kill a chicken and pluck it, and you're moaning about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I think everything's quick now, has to be so instant. And so for me to kind of slow down is really important.
Yeah.
And find different pacing rhythms. So yeah, film scores are really big for me on that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Please
Next
pick
one.
the next one.
Discipline. Yeah, this is something I've been learning more lately, actually.
See, for me, looking at what you do, I would think that it comes a second nature to you in a way, because you are spending endless amount of hours with a scalpel, etching into leather, stroke by stroke.
Yeah.
That must take some discipline.
Massive amounts of discipline. But once you are on that path, it goes from discipline to something else. It just becomes a flow, an organic flow. You don't see it as discipline. So interestingly, I've started, my son's been out of school for a little while. And so he was really missing PE and physical education. So I found a boxing and a Muay Thai coach, and I took my son to a boxing Muay Thai coach, and he said, I don't train kids. I was like, okay. And he said, look, I'll train him as long as you join. So Oscar, my son, was like, so this was 3 years ago. I was 47 at the time. I said, I'm 47. I can't learn a new thing at 47. And the word discipline has been really interesting. Because learning a new thing in your late 40s, you have to become a student again. You take the lower seat, you kind of come alongside. So now this has been fascinating. So I'm training alongside young fighters in their 20s, utter badasses, real fighters. And I'm learning discipline from them in ways that I've not known because I'm off grid. Whereas with art, it's never been about discipline because it's been an obsession. I didn't need to discipline myself. It was just there. So I think discipline's there when motivation's gone, when you don't want to do it. Discipline has to kick in.
And that was my next question, that you must go through bouts. I mean, I get bored easily if I had to repeat the same thing. Hence why I'm not an artist and you are. But when you get to that point, when your motivation's gone, what do you do?
I think team is really important. So having a really good team, because what I do creatively is also commerce, it's my income. You get to the point where you have no choice. I've got children, mortgage, studio, rent. I can't not want to carry on.
You're accountable, yeah.
I'm adulting. And as much as I want to be this kind of wild young artist, I've got to pay my staff. So you just have to keep going. And it shifts from art. There's been moments where it goes from art as obsession into it's life, it's business.
But if I said to you, take me back to a time when you didn't have children, people were not relying on you.
Yeah.
I guess even to get through life, you will go through times where you lose motivation.
Yeah.
Where even the fact that you have family members relying on you, you've got bills to pay, you've got a team that you've got to, pay wages for. There's got to be a time where you think, the dark mark has appeared. Like,
I think
is that another space of gratitude again, or?
It depends how deep that goes. I mean, lockdown was interesting because I lost my mum at the beginning of lockdown, and then a couple of years later, I quit alcohol, which was big. And
why did you do that?
Well, it started with two friends who were big drinkers and suddenly, independently, didn't know each other, different parts, different realms, circles of friends, came and said, I'm quitting alcohol. And I was completely shocked. And then my best friend's daughter's wedding, I put my suit on. I thought, this suit doesn't fit. And I thought, I didn't like that. And then the day after the wedding, my best mate came down from Wales and his kids jumped in my pool. And I looked at Jamie and I said, Jamie, bloody hell, you got a six-pack. How have you got a six-pack? He went, just started training, quit, slowed on the drinking. And in that moment, I stopped. I was drinking pretty heavy. And it began as, I think it was a sense of, there was a lot of low energy. And I was using alcohol as some form of anesthetic to numb things and keep
coping mechanism.
I was getting in. I wasn't a big drinker, but maybe 3 or 4 beers a night, just in cold beer, dinner, cold beer, another cold beer. And it just became a rhythm. And I realized I've lost that spark, that mojo.
And your kind of true sense of who you are as well, right? Because you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, and you know how habits work. You just walk in and just do it.
That mask becomes who you think you are. So then you need to put the mask on, which is the beer, right?
So I'd walk in, first thing I do, hey, I'm home, open the fridge, cold Corona. Okay, right. Okay, what's the deal? Dinner, okay, I'm cooking another cold Corona.
Now I can function.
Yeah, now I can. And I thought, this is not who I was noticing myself. It was the motivation when my son would say, Dad, can we play football? Oh, and it was that feeling of, there was no energy. And I thought, I don't want to be like this. So I completely quit overnight. And then this spark came back. Yeah, that was an interesting journey.
Yeah, amazing. Alcohol seems to be a really big one. Sobriety seems to be a big theme that keeps recurring in my podcast with guests who've chosen to go down that path and then help others as well, just because they realize how different they become.
It's so interesting how they've branded, and I say they, I mean whether it's the government legislation or whether it's brands, alcohol is ethanol.
Yeah.
We use ethanol in the studio.
Right.
It's deadly.
Yeah.
To break down leather pigments, ethanol. But it's cleverly packaged ethanol and it's very well marketed.
Yeah. Of
and
course.
We're
People think that they can't live without it.
Exactly.
Because it's labeled as celebratory. It's, again, it's conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's just make sure that people associate it to something happy. Doesn't matter where it takes them.
Yeah,
and in most cases, it's either somebody's head down a toilet or, they're on the road with no shoes on because they've no idea where they are.
Yeah.
And they don't really care about the consequences of what it's doing to people.
I don't have a moral stance on it. I've got friends who are very, very against alcohol because of what they've seen themselves. But for me, I could go and see a friend, have a cigar and a whiskey, and that'd be it.
Yeah, it's a choice, isn't it? It's just
it's
being
a together
able
thing.
To say
we could
no.
just sit and have a whiskey, but it was the alone drinking for me. Just alone. So
It feels like you've set some boundaries now. You know when
for sure.
Yeah, when you want to and when you don't want to.
But
and both are okay.
Yeah.
Well, you look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
The no alcohol glow is there.
It definitely helps me. Risk. I mean, this is a big word. Risk. Everything I do.
Why is risk so sexy to you? It's
because it's the do or die. It's have you seen Man on Wire? When he walks across a tightrope between the Twin Towers. I mean, that guy's a lunatic. Talk about obsessive drive, and because it's the tightrope of life. And I think with my work, a painter adds, and if a painter doesn't like what they're doing, then they paint over it.
Yeah.
If you work with pencils and charcoal, if you don't like it, you rub it out and go again.
Absolutely.
When you work with a blade, there is no undo.
Zero margin for error.
Yeah, there's no Apple Z, there's no Control Z. You can't undo what you've done. It's everything a blade passes through is changed forever, for good or bad. And so therefore there's this knife edge, literally a knife edge. So for me, it's where I come alive.
It's like a truth for you, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's like a plumb line. It's like this true north.
But it seems to be in everything that you do. It's not just in your art, is it?
This is my poor wife. I've dragged her through some risks. Yes, even when the kids were little, doing things we shouldn't be doing, jumping off rocks into the sea when they were too little to do it. And risk, it's that unknown, it's stepping into the unknown. So yeah. Legacy. That's a good word.
It's a good word, and I feel a lot of the times it's kind of overused as well. But in the context of your work and in decades to come, how would you want people to remember what you placed as art, and how would you want them to remember you?
It's really interesting, legacy, because there's the sense that it means post-death.
Yes.
That what are you going to leave behind? I can't predict how the world will see my work.
That's why I
when
said
I'm gone.
decades to come, because I feel like you're a visionary. So the fact that you're already working on stuff at the moment that's pioneering, because you're a pioneering trait, a personality trait. For me, it's understanding what is it that you want whilst you're still alive. What do you want to hear about yourself as an artist?
Immediately, so I think of a boat going through water, which I've done a lot of, and it leaves the wake, or a plane leaves the jet stream. But the wake behind a boat is, I'm kind of more interested in what my immediate effect is. How is my immediate legacy, if that's the right word to use? What effect do I have on you? What effect am I having on my team? Now, the further distance I have from that over time, I'm hoping that all you get to control is the now.
Absolutely true.
And even then, that's hard to control the now. But
I think you can only ever be aware of the now.
Yeah.
As opposed to controlling the now. I think if you living in the moment, you're able to just be, however that might play out.
I think that the just be is a good word. I think, to answer your question of how would I like to be known, I think for me, authenticity is the most important, that resonant, that I don't want to put on masks for people. I would rather be true to what's deeply in here, and the vulnerability of letting that out, and the kind of the feeling that I've had my whole life of why did I say that? That stupidity of why am I trying to constantly just conform, just do what everyone else is doing. But I can't. I've come to realize I can't. So that authenticity for me is important. And that's like Marmite. People love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And you can't control what people's tastes are. So to be true to the flavor you are, I think that's important.
Yeah, and it is, you're right, it is about authenticity, and that's right, because you're being true to yourself.
Yeah.
It's just been labelled and perceived as a rebel or as because you're a nonconformist. But in actual fact, you're not. You're just doing things different.
Yeah.
Because really there isn't a right or a wrong. There's just a who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure.
Without kind of placing yourself in these boxes. Let's see what else.
A lot of art,
we're
taught when we're young, art is about keep within the lines.
Oh, yeah.
Keep neat, draw within the lines, or you've gone off the...
Oh, yeah. Even colouring in.
Colouring the lines, yeah. Duality. That's a good word.
So when I think of Mark Evans, this is the word that sums up for me. Like, you have an unmistakable duality, almost like a disciplined chaos. That's how I would kind of see you.
Right.
Because on the one hand, you have this obsessive personality trait where your scalpels are laid in a certain way, your studio has got to be clean, there is an expectation of things to be a certain type of way, so that's quite regimented, quite disciplined in a way. But then the flip side of that coin is that you do not want to be compartmentalized in any way. You want to be running naked in the mountains of Wales and jumping off cliffs with your children. How does that make you feel?
It's so interesting. I've never actually had anyone say that's both sides of the coin.
You see, when you look at it from a spiritual perspective, the only thing that exists is duality. Everything's got to have the other part. If there's a masculine energy, there's a feminine energy. If there's a good, there's a bad. It's always got to be there. And that's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with it being there. It's just another perspective, but it's always going to be the absolute opposite of the one that you're talking about.
Yeah. And then there's the left brain, right brain.
Absolutely. The creative, the logic, everything.
I think for me, duality, in many ways, it's this solitude there's the discipline and obsession, and also risk. On one hand, I have to be so careful. It's surgeon's level precision with the scalpel.
Yeah.
And yet there's part of me that wants to burn the bridges and do something completely wild. My next body of work is going to be much more like that. But in order to get there, I've had to go through this micro sculpture to achieve it. So I think for me, the duality is actually helpful when you think of, one is vision. What am I looking at? But then to get the micro, I'm thinking about rocket science and the vision to travel interstellar. There's the vision to do it, but then there's all the science and the math and the physics that has to get there. And so there's this crazy, we're going to walk on this planet, but to get there requires lots of algorithms. And so, yeah, they both exist.
And I guess that's the same with your work as well, isn't it? If you think about it, what would have been the longest commission that you've ever taken on?
So this is interesting about duality. You say this. So the biggest commission I've ever done is in the St. Regis in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
And it's 2 vast pieces, one at the concierge end of the hotel, one at the reception. And the title of the piece is Grace Thunders, which are 2 opposing words. It's about polo. So this piece took maybe 3 years from concepts to delivery and installation, maybe 4 years. And the commission was, I was asked to go and photograph polo. And not being from that world, I'm kind of much more working class background. To me, polo seems upper class.
Yeah.
Very refined, privileged.
Entitled.
Yeah. A different world from me. I'm Welsh, rugby. And so when they said, we want you to do polo, I thought, oh no, how do I do this? Because polo's only ever captured from the side of the pitch on a long paparazzi lens, safe away from the horses. And the idea came when I said, I will do it, but I have to be in the danger. My camera has to be in the ground where the ball is so that the riders are charging over me. And so that's what we did. We buried the camera in the ground. The horses and riders charged over and we caught the energy. There's one point of energy on the field. That's the ball, because everyone's heading for the ball. Yeah. And so it very much became like the rugby scrum. And so these huge pieces in the St. Regis, it's a horse is charging at you and you're the small ball. And so that energy, that duality. So we named it Grace Thunders because it's
exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah. And that was about 4 years, that commission, a long time. Yeah.
Pick the next. I feel like we might have just
fear,
1 or 2 to go. It's interesting because you talk about risk being the unknown, and yet you embrace it. You find it quite sexy. You think, it's. I feel like there's a very positive attachment to risk for you. It's something you want to do, let's say. But then fear, which is also the unknown, you have a very different relationship with fear.
Fear, I think, is in the dark side. Fear has been something I've battled with. So if you can imagine a young boy, hyper creative, massive imagination, had a grandmother who part raised me, who was riddled with superstition. And so a lot of my boyhood was battling fears and a lot of superstitions. There were so many in my life I had to break. And when I moved to London from Wales, I intentionally broke these superstitions because I'd lived under this kind of dark shadow, like a spell of fear.
Yeah.
That if you do this, this will happen. It was a life of consequence. That you do that wrong, that's going to happen to you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. It's a way of controlling people, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And so I had to learn how to break those and therefore be free from it. But I think the battle with fear is so primal. Many people live for the paycheck at the end of the month. There's a steadiness to their life. But when you're an artist, it's feast and famine. So there's high highs and low lows. And so that roller coaster can be a birthplace for fear. So learning to master fear has been something really important.
Is it maybe how you see it? Because that's also a risk, isn't it? And yet you're okay with risk.
Yeah, I think fear is, like I said, I feel fear has a dark element to it. And it can come with accusation. It can come with what I call the earworms, the little voices that say you're nothing. This will never work. It's very negative. It's very broken. And undermining, the whispers. There's kind of these little evil whisper mind worms. So fear to me is always trying to stop you, diminish you, make you lesser than.
Interesting. Fear, again, it's another theme that comes up time and time again, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an entrepreneur, taking your first steps into a multi-million-pound global business. Fear is something that everyone just doesn't quite know how to navigate.
Yeah.
And they've got to go through something. So was there anything that would have happened to you where you broke through, and that was your kind of moment of knowing that you can overcome it? Was there a defining moment at any point?
Yeah, many defining moments. But I think for me, the most vital antidote to fear is faith. And it's understanding that I'm not alone in the universe. And for everything that's set against me, there is a refuge and a surety and a faith and an anchor that I can hold to that is far greater than any voices of fear. So for me, that's been huge.
There's the duality.
Yeah. So that place of faith and that's been massive for me in shattering it.
Love that.
Yeah.
Faith, it's very powerful. Interestingly, as I was growing up, fear was instilled in us as, if you didn't do this, God will punish you. If you didn't do that, God will punish you. So it's interesting that people can use the faith element that you find as refuge and create such a power, where you associate the Almighty, the kind of source to it, that it still instills the same kind of fear.
I'm not going to flip the finger at you, but that ring, that ring, Dad, it says Dad, to me was a moment in my life when I realized God is not an angry tyrant trying to crush me. He's a father, and fathers are looking out for the interest and the looking out for the heart and to protect their kids. And so for me, that moment was, I realized I don't need to rely. It's not only on my own engine. I'm not the supreme being. I'm not big enough for this one. I can rest in those everlasting arms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's someone far greater than me.
Yeah.
So that was a big
There's
one.
solace in that belief, isn't there? Because the
refuge.
If you can believe that, you feel it. And if you feel it, then your mind is in a good space to just reframe whatever might be going on, eliminating the fear at that moment. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Process.
So
the journey, gosh.
The journey. I mean, your work, we haven't talked a lot about your work in this because the podcast is about the person. And, whatever comes out of the podcast, and what learnings can people take from this on their journeys for them to become the best versions of themselves in their eyes, right? Not in anybody else's eyes. When I think about your work, you used primal before, and I would place your work as primal. It's precise, but it's primal. Like, just some of the stuff is, you look at it and you're like, it gives you a feeling.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like impossible. How have you done this? I looked at the Arnold Schwarzenegger again and again and again, and I was zooming in with my phone, and I was like, how the hell has he? How do you see a minute stroke that small?
Because of this
on
word,
a big
process. Because it didn't begin. We're nearly 25 years in, and I've always had a vision. I remember when I first got the blood on the jacket. That's how this whole thing began. Near the turn of the millennium, got blood on the jacket, trying to clean the blood off a leather jacket. And trying to clean the blood off, I had this moment, this Archimedes eureka moment, almost God's thunderbolt, where I realized I can carve into leather and find the suede, find the nap. And nearly a quarter of a century of process I remember sitting around the table and saying, I've had an idea with this jacket. I know what I'm going to do. And I remember people around the table saying, you can't do that. You can't offer people that. You don't know if you can do it yet, but I saw it. And so that's the process, is learning. So I'll sit with the team. And to answer your question about the Arnold Schwarzenegger, we just kept what's possible if we work with the right tannery, the right leather, different nuanced blades, different pigmentation, incredible photography, and how can all these processes work together and dovetail and kind of find this synchronicity so that when we landed with Arnold's portrait, I mean, Arnold was blown away by that piece. It was such a great landing spot. And now my challenge is, how do I beat that? How do I go beyond that?
I would urge all of you to go and find this, because it's truly exceptional. Just the contrast between the dark hues and then this colour, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that
It's
was a
amazing.
good one. I love that piece.
Listen, I could talk to you all day, and we are out of time.
That went really quick.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
I can't quite believe how quickly it went. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you for being so open and honest. I think that what people can take away from this is just be yourselves, right? It's not about trying to fit into how somebody else might be or how you might relate to that person. It's how do you feel about the things that you're doing and where you're going and what you're putting out into the world, and to stay that authentic self the whole time, so that in your journey, in your life, you feel like you did right by you. And I feel like that's something that you've always, for the years that I've known you, that's never changed.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying.
Beautiful.
It's
beautiful. And I think that you're so lucky that you found something that, even though as a child you thought was so frustrating for you because you didn't really know what it all meant, but I've seen you at work. It's like you travel to a different dimension when you have that scalpel in your hand and you're etching away. And that's got to be a really beautiful place to be, for you to be there for hours.
Yeah, it's
with so many tools.
It's kind of magic.
Yeah.
Some sort of magic happens.
Well, I wish you the best of luck
Thank you, Deepa.
with your future endeavours, and thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.